Question 9. The triangle ABC, and the point D are shown on the coordinate diagram below. So this is a coordinate diagram. It has an x-axis, which is the horizontal line, and a y-axis, which is the vertical line. Part A, write down the coordinates of the points A and B. So into this box here, we put the coordinate of point A, and into this box here, we put the coordinate of point B. So a coordinate is always written with a bracket, a number, a comma, a number, and another bracket. And the first number that goes inside the brackets is always going to be the x value. So if we want to start off with point A, which is here, we have to see what number does it line up with on the x-axis. So the x always comes first. The x is always the first number or the first value. And think about it like x is before y on the alphabet. So on the x-axis, the A matches up with 5. So 5 is going to be the first number in our coordinate. So it's going to be 5, comma something. And then the second number matches up with the y-axis. So this is our y-axis, our vertical axis. And we can see that the point A matches up with 1 on the y-axis. So 1 is our second number. So our x value is 5. The A matches up with 5 on the x-axis. And our y value is 1. The A matches up with 1 on our y-axis. So A is equal to 5, comma 1. Then we have the point B, and we do the same. We see what number does B line up with on the x-axis. So remember, the x value always has to come first. So this is our x-axis, it's the horizontal line. And B lines up with 3 on the x-axis. So 3 is our first number inside our brackets. And then we see what does it line up with on the y-axis. So this is our y-axis. And the B lines up with 4 on our y-axis. So 4 is our second number. So our x value is 3. And our y value is 4. So the point B is 3, comma 4. Part B. Write down the coordinates of the midpoint of AB. So we're going to use our point A and our point B, and we're going to get the midpoint of these 2 points. So we're going to use our midpoint formula from our formula book on page 18. So page 18 has all our coordinate geometry formulas. And the midpoint formula is bracket x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, bracket. So we're going to take our point A and label it x1, y1. So the 5 is x1, the 1 is y1. And we take our B point and we label it x2, y2. So the 3 is x2 and the 4 is y2. Now it doesn't matter if we were to label the B as x1 and y1 and the A is x2 and y2, so long as we don't, for example, label one of the points x1 and y2 or x2 and y1. It has to be the 1's together and the 2's together. So then we take our formula and we just substitute into our formula. So we swap the x1 for 5 because we labelled the 5 as x1 here. And we swap the x2 for 3 because we labelled the 3 as x2 here. And then we swap the y1 for 1 because we labelled 1 as y1 up here. And we swap the y2 for 4 because we labelled the 4 as y2 up here. So it's basically the x values added together divided by 2 and the y values added together divided by 2. So 5 plus 3 is 8, so it's going to be 8 divided by 2. And 1 plus 4 is 5, so it's going to be 5 divided by 2. And remember, you've got your bracket, your comma, and your bracket each time. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. and 5 divided by 2 is going to be 2.5 or 2.5. So our midpoint is going to be bracket 4, comma, 2.5, bracket. So our x value is 4, our y value is 2.5 or 2.5. So this is the midpoint of AB. Part C. Work out AB, the length of AB. So these lines here mean length or distance. So we want to find the distance from the point A to the point B. So in coordinate geometry, if we ever want to find the length or the distance between 2 points, we have to use our length or distance formula, which is on page 18 of our formula book, which is our coordinate geometry page. And the length or distance formula is a big square root, bracket, x2 minus x1 bracket squared, plus bracket, y2 minus y1 bracket squared. Be very careful when you're writing out your formula, because sometimes people forget to put in the plus. And if you forget the plus, then what you end up doing is multiplying this by this, and you get a completely wrong answer. So be very, very careful, because this is a long formula with lots of different parts to it. Be careful that you write it out accurately and you substitute into it accurately. So then we take our 2 points. We have point A and point B, and we label them x1, y1, x2, y2. So the 5 is x1, the 1 is y1, the b is x2, and the 4 is y2. Now it wouldn't matter if you had labelled the 5, 1 as x2, y2, and the 3, 4 as x1, y1, you'd still get the same answer. What would be very incorrect, however, would be to label, for example, this point x1 and y2, or x2 and y1. The 1's have to be together, and the 2's have to be together. Okay, so we have our formula, big square root, bracket, and then x2 becomes 3, because we labelled 3 as x2. Then we have the minus, and then we swap the x1 for a 5, because we labelled the 5 as x1, and then we have the bracket and the squared part. Then we bring down the plus, very important. This is something that a lot of people forget, is the plus sign. Then we have a bracket, and we swap the y2 for 4, because we labelled the 4 to be y2, and the minus. And then the y1 we swap for 1, because we labelled the 1 as y1. Then we have bracket and we have squared. So then we work out what's inside the brackets, because we're always following BOMDAS or BIDMAS or BIRDMAS, whichever way you learnt it off. So the B represents brackets, so we always do what's inside the brackets first. 3 minus 5 is minus 2. Now we have to make sure that we keep the brackets and the squared part. Then we bring down the plus, and 4 minus 1 is 3. And again we have the brackets and the squared. So then we have the square root, bracket minus 2 bracket squared, plus bracket 3 bracket squared. Now very, very important that we have the brackets and the squared part, because if we forgot the brackets and we just did minus 2 squared, we would end up with minus 4, and that would be incorrect. Because minus 2 squared means minus 2 multiplied by minus 2, which is plus 4, or just 4, because a minus multiplied by minus is a plus. So minus 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 plus 3 is 13. So we end up with the square root of 13, and we just label it as root 13 units. We don't need to press SD, which would be to change it to a decimal, but that is how we would change it to a decimal if we wanted to. But because they didn't ask us to round it off to 1 decimal place or 2 decimal places or 3 decimal places and so on, we can leave it as square root 13. Now we could have just put all of this into the calculator, and straight away we would have gotten the square root of 13, but you should try and do out each step individually, and only input this into the calculator at the end and check is your answer right, because the steps could be worth marks themselves, not just the answer. So the distance from A to B, or the length of AB, is root 13 units.